2020 was a plan. It did not happen by accident. The China virus arrived here only after decades of groundwork had been laid. In part 1 of this video over at YouTube, we talked about Sun Tzu, The Art of War, subduing your enemy without firing shot. There are 2 events that occurred in the previous years that nobody is putting together with what happened in 2020. In this video, we're going to do this. It's highly controversial. It's an incredibly sensitive topic, and for that reason, we have to be here at Patreon. We talked about this example of arrogance, going back to the Romans, King George, how powerful militaries and powerful governments get so caught up in their own power that they develop a blind spot and it becomes a weakness. The Huns and the Visigoths used poisoned food supplies to take out massive amounts of their enemy without firing a shot. The Roman soldiers just could never have conceived of coming upon a camp, seemingly abandoned, and having it actually be a trap. It's something they were never trained for. But there's another example out there. There's another example out there of how the arrogance of militaries, and primarily men, can be used as an asset. This is Leah Gabriel. Leah Gabriel has a very colorful history. She is a human intelligence asset for the U.S. government. And she has been for a very long time. She was a pilot. She flew off of the USS George Washington in Operation Enduring Freedom back in 2002. I doubt anyone would look at any of these 4 images and see F-18 pilot, nor would they think CIA operative. Whether all the way on the left at a formal event or at the beach, kite surfing, or just walking around a park in Manhattan like a normal girl, or even over all the way on the right at Fox as a contributor. This individual, just by image, could completely disarm any enemy. You wouldn't see this as a threat. You wouldn't see this as an asset of the U.S. government, but make no mistake, she's come a very, very long way from her time as a pilot, flying an F-18. Leah Gabriel served in the Trump administration. Secretary of State Pompeo actually put a tweet out about this, but we're going to leave that for something in the future. Leah Gabriel's term ended on 19 February 2021, meaning she served past and into the Biden administration. Leah Gabriel is the special envoy and coordinator of the Global Engagement Center at the U.S. Department of State. She's a former Human Intelligence Operations Officer, read interrogator, Defense Foreign Liaison Officer, U.S. Navy Program Director, Navy FA-18C fighter pilot, and national television news correspondent and anchor. While serving in the U.S. intelligence community, Ms. Gabriel was a CIA-trained Human Intelligence Operations Officer assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency. She directed and conducted global clandestine strategic intelligence collection operations. Ms. Gabriel was also deployed in tactical anti-terrorist operations in hostile environments with Naval Special Operations, Naval Special Warfare, SEALs. She deployed with SEALs, conducting independent operations in support of Tier 1 forces. Ms. Gabriel later served as director of a U.S. Navy sensitive intelligence program. You wouldn't think this from this image. You would not think this. It would be something that would be the farthest thing from your mind. An incredible resume, and worked at Fox. Naval Academy graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering. With her training, She gets together with a group of her friends, and all these images are publicly available on her Instagram, by the way. And they go out and they decide they want to hit the town. Maybe in a foreign country where they know perhaps foreign soldiers are mingling. How easy do you think it would be to garner some useful, actionable intelligence after a few drinks? Pretty easy. Anybody out there with a reasonable mind would look at this group, and the last thing they would think is, wow, I'm being used as an asset of the United States. Just another example of arrogance. Soldiers, especially after a few drinks, are very arrogant, and they like to get into dick measuring contests, especially around pretty girls. Piece of cake. Now, China, the virus. Fentanyl. Now, did they spike fentanyl with the virus? No. Fentanyl had a job to do. The Chinese began pumping fentanyl into this country in the mid-2010s. 2010, 2011, 2012. But it had a mission to do. The mission was to get everybody who touched it addicted to it, and get even more people addicted to opiates and CNS depressants. Why? Opiates and CNS depressants compromise lungs in a way like no other. Overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids were nearly 12 times higher the year before COVID than in 2013. You see, this by itself is one thing. COVID by itself is another thing. But if you have a population of people that are heavily addicted to opioids and other CNS depressants, COVID is deadly. COVID killed elderly people who already have, of course, compromised lungs. But just killing off the elderly of an enemy state actually kind of helps the enemy state. But if you can find a way to get the young and get the strong and get those in the cities, best bang for your buck. CNS depressants, opioids, non-opioids, alcohol, barbiturates, benzodiazepines, those are sleeping pills. Narcotics, opium, morphine, fentanyl, Dilaudid, oxy, all this compromises your ability to breathe. They radically slow down your breathing. And if you're addicted to these, and people are taking these, and their lungs are compromised, and COVID shows up, they're done. They're toast. What COVID did was out how many drug addicts there were in this country. Secret drug addicts. Functioning drug addicts. Taking all the prescription sleeping pills, the over-the-counter, not over-the-counter, but prescription sleeping pills. Slows down the breathing. All those that were secretly popping pills, all of a sudden had a huge problem. COVID went after the lungs. I don't think these two things are unrelated. All of a sudden we have this virus showing up in 2020 that is specifically designed to attack the lungs. And prior to that, huge amounts of a drug arriving in our country that compromises the lungs. To the point where we ran out of ventilators and they were having to try to invent ways to use one ventilator for multiple people. This is the real story. The Chinese laid the groundwork for COVID. The Chinese made this deadly. Now, for those who are not addicted, like the young, strong lungs, they can deal with this. But for everyone else who is compromised, who has been abusing their bodies, this is a killer. This is why it's so particular with the liberals. Because in the liberal-run blue cities, drug addiction is rampant. That's why it was so important for them to make sure that in certain places, the legalization of marijuana, another thing, anything you smoke compromises your lungs. Anything that you turn into smoke form and inhale into your lungs compromises your lungs. Just because it coats your alveoli. Vaping, cigarettes, marijuana, opiates, alcohol, all of these things, sleeping pills, make you incredibly susceptible, to COVID. And we saw a massive influx right before from China. It was one of the questions a lot of the DA was at. They can't be making money on this. Why are they doing this? They can't be making money. They can't be making tons of money like the guys in South America. Why are they doing this? Why are they flooding our country with this stuff in these amounts? So much of it getting seized. A lot of it was very hard to handle. And cops were kicking over from just touching the stuff. This is what they were doing. They were laying the groundwork to compromise this country, the people of this country, so that when they introduced COVID, it would kill. So I will leave it there. But trust me when I tell you, there are assets of the U.S. military and U.S. alphabet agencies everywhere. And sometimes you just can't tell by looking. And I'll leave it there. Thank you for being here. I very much appreciate all of you who have signed up here at Patreon. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference in my life, and I am very thankful for all of you. God bless. Share with your friends, and we will see you tonight on Twitch.